Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to completely flip the script on how you think about motivation, habits, and success. We're tossing out those tired old self-help cliches and looking directly at the behavioral psychology and the neuroscience of how our brains actually work. By the time we wrap up here, you're going to see exactly how your brain processes victory, and more importantly, how you can use that biology to your absolute advantage.
So let me start off by asking you something kind of provocative. Why do our biggest goals usually fail? Really think about it. As a society, we are just completely obsessed with massive milestones, aren't we? We want the grand transformation, the massive weight loss, the big graduation, the total life overhaul. But waiting around for these huge, distant transformations usually leads to exactly one thing, and that's burnout. We give up way before we ever reach the finish line. Because your biology, it literally does not care about your 5-year plan. It only cares about right now.
Section 1. The myth of milestones. Why small wins matter. Okay. So big milestones are great for setting a direction, sure. But the data actually shows it's the small, daily victories that really predict long-term success. To get why, we have to look at what James Clear calls the cardinal rule of behavior change. It goes like this. What is rewarded gets repeated, what is punished is avoided. We learn which behaviors to repeat based almost entirely on how they make us feel in the immediate moment. If a behavior feels good right away, your brain basically bookmarks it and says, yep, let's do that again. There's this absolutely hilarious anecdote that perfectly captures this idea. So a group of college students decided to play a little prank on their professor, who was known for, occasionally talking with his hands. The students made a pact. Whenever the professor raised his arms, they would all just smile and nod approvingly, giving him this immediate positive feedback. Well, within a single semester, no joke, his subtle little gestures had turned into just wild, vigorous flailing throughout the entire lecture. Without even realizing it, his brain had quickly adapted to the immediate social rewards his students were feeding him. Section 2. The science of satisfaction. Immediate feedback. This exact same mechanism dictates what we do in public every single day. Let me set the scene for you. A group of city engineers in Stockholm, Sweden, wanted to see if they could get more commuters to choose the stairs over the escalator in a really busy subway station. So they completely transformed the standard boring subway stairs into giant, interactive musical piano keys. Literally, every step you took played a musical note out loud. And the results? Totally staggering. They saw a massive 66% increase in people taking the stairs over the escalator. I mean, this just brilliantly illustrates the power of immediate, surprising satisfaction. People weren't taking the stairs because they suddenly deeply cared about their cardiovascular health, right? They took them because making music with your feet is just immediately rewarding and fun. Section 3. Inside the brain. Dopamine's role. So we can see this happening out in the real world, but what's actually going on under the hood down at the neurological level? Well, we've all heard of dopamine, right? The brain's famous reward chemical. But here is what's absolutely vital to understand. Completing even the tiniest of tasks, like folding a single shirt, or answering a really short email, or just making your bed, triggers a dopamine release. It's not just a feel-good chemical, it's a do-it-again chemical. It gives us that crucial little taste of success that we need to jumpstart our motivation and keep us moving forward. But listen, our brains don't just blindly chase dopamine. They are constantly performing these really complex calculations, which brings us to a crucial concept called the explore-exploit dilemma. Simply put, this is the brain's constant challenge of striking a balance. Do you exploit a known action that has rewarded you in the past? Or do you explore new options to see if the environment has maybe changed and there's a better reward out there? Section 4. Explore versus exploit. A delicate balance. To really get this balance, let's unpack this fascinating study from the journal Frontiers in Behavioral Neuroscience. In this semi-naturalistic experiment, researchers put mice in a closed economy where they had to earn all their food just by pressing levers. There was an inexpensive lever, which required just a few presses for food, and an expensive lever, which took a lot of presses. But just to keep the mice on their toes, the costs of these levers would actually switch every 20 to 40 minutes. The cheap lever suddenly became expensive, and vice versa. Now, what's really interesting here is how two different groups of mice reacted. The researchers compared normal mice against hyperdopaminergic mice, meaning they were engineered to have elevated levels of background dopamine. When the cost switched, both groups noticed right away. They both showed a quick burst of activity on the old lever, realized things had changed, and checked the new lever. So their learning was totally intact. But here is the kicker. While the normal mice quickly adopted and started exploiting the new low-cost lever to save their energy, the hyperdopaminergic mice failed to exploit the easier option.
They just kept pressing both levers equally, which, wasted a massive amount of energy.
To explain why this happens, researchers use something called the soft max temperature parameter. Now, stay with me here. Think of tonic dopamine as acting kind of like a volume dial in your brain. This dial connects your past rewards to your future choices. In the mice with way too much dopamine, the dial was completely thrown off. They learned which lever was cheaper, sure, but the dopamine imbalance prevented them from expressing that learning effectively. It literally completely disrupted their ability to exploit their own micro-wins.
Section 5. Hack your rewards. Practical applications. Okay, so knowing all this about how dopamine drives us and how immediate rewards shape our behavior, how do we actually use it? Well, this science becomes incredibly powerful and frankly deeply personal when dealing with mental health struggles like depression. See, depression actively warps your self-perception. It tells you, what's the point? Or I can't follow through on anything anyway. But those thoughts are symptoms, they're not facts. When you complete a micro-action, like drinking a single glass of water or just stepping outside for 5 minutes, you trigger that dopamine release and provide hard, undeniable evidence against those distorted thoughts. These small wins act like emotional strength training, slowly rebuilding your self-trust and literally building new neural pathways for positive choices. Now, to make these micro-wins actually stick, we need external reinforcers. We need to reward ourselves. But, and this is absolutely crucial, your rewards must align with the type of person you ultimately want to become. You have to avoid conflicting rewards and instead choose identity-aligned rewards. Let me show you exactly what I mean by that. Let's say your goal is to save money and you successfully skip going out to an expensive dinner. That is a great micro-win. But if your reward for that is buying a brand new jacket, well, you're basically casting a vote for the identity of a spender, right? It's a conflicting reward. However, if you reward yourself by transferring $50 into a visual trip to Europe savings account, you're casting a vote for the identity of a saver. It feels good immediately, and it perfectly aligns with your long-term goals. The exact same logic applies to fitness. Crush a workout, then reward yourself with a massive bowl of ice cream. You've got a conflicting identity loop. But if you reward yourself by taking a relaxing bubble bath, you reinforce the identity of someone who truly takes care of their body. You've just created a positive, closed feedback loop where the reward perfectly matches the goal. So how can we actually start doing this today without getting totally overwhelmed? Well, here is a super concrete, science-backed 3-step action plan. Step 1, pick a micro-action. Just tidy one single drawer or wipe down one counter. Step 2, track the win visually. Check off a box or write it down. Visual tracking is just deeply satisfying to the human brain. Step 3, reward yourself with intentional rest. Give yourself the permission to just sit in the sun for 5 minutes without an ounce of guilt. I want to share this incredibly powerful realization from the recovery source material we looked at for this explainer. You can't hate yourself into lasting change. Think about that. So many of us feel guilty for celebrating small progress because we feel like we should be so much further along by now. But self-celebration isn't selfish, and it certainly isn't toxic positivity. It's the literal biological foundation for sustained healing and habit formation. You absolutely need those dopamine hits to rewire your brain for the future. Which leaves us with one final thought. The science is super clear. Your brain doesn't need you to conquer the entire world today. It literally just needs you to take one step. So, what micro-win are you going to celebrate today? Find it, track it, reward it, and just watch how it transforms your tomorrow. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next explainer.